Okay. Thank you for having me. Thanks for the opportunity to discuss this awesome fellowship and my participation therein. So my name is Sterling Haring. I'm the current NAM fellow in osteopathic medicine. And I wanted to just briefly discuss some of the impact that the AOF is having via this fellowship. So just a brief overview for those who are new to this, or just a refresher for those who aren't. This is a 2-year fellowship. It's meant to be part-time and work in parallel with my clinical or academic duties. I'm the 5th fellow. The primary responsibilities of the fellow are to participate in all the NAM activities, right? So this last year we had an anniversary gala and that sort of thing. We have semi-annual meetings where we get together with other fellows and then leadership and members of the NAM, which are always enlightening. We also contribute the osteopathic perspective to consensus studies, task forces, and committees, and then develop relationships that can advance osteopathic influence. I see those as kind of like the key roles of this of the fellowship broadly. So what impact is this fellowship having on the NAM, on the National Academy of Medicine, and NASM broadly, engineering and science as well? Representation is number one. I'm the only DO on any of my projects or committees. And I often have to, there's just an assumption that I'm an MD. And so that I find opportunities to kind of bring that up because I think it's important that we have diversity of thought on a lot of different, from a lot of different perspectives, but this, I think our approach is an important one. Contributing perspective, I think that is meaningful. So we had this great example just maybe a month ago. So I sit on a committee that Congress has requested that the VA get with the national academies and perform this very large and politically weighted study. We heard from the VA, we heard from Senate staffers, and they certainly have opposing positions on how the VA has done in terms of the last decade and a half or so of prescribing opioids and or benzodiazepines, and the VA's role in morbidity and mortality associated with perhaps alleged overprescription or misprescription of those medications. And so they have asked us as the NAM, to perform a large retrospective study that is kind of an all hands on deck, very heavy lift. I'm a part of the study staff as a fellow, and it's been a phenomenal opportunity. But just an example of how my osteopathic background has contributed to this meaningfully, measurably so, there was a lot of conversation about non-opioid treatments and kind of a comparison group. How do we, what types of treatments might people be doing instead of receiving opioids or prior to receiving opioids and that sort of thing. And it doesn't hurt that I'm a pain physician. It doesn't hurt that I'm a physical medicine and rehabilitation physician. So all of that said, I was kind of raising my hand in the background saying, what about manipulation? What about physical therapy? What about all these non-pharmacological? And they're like, oh, we didn't even think about that. And it was kind of, on one hand disturbing, and on another, I was glad to be in the room. I was glad that we had an osteopathic physician in the room who could say there are a lot of opportunities to address some of these huge issues that are plaguing our nation without, just changing what you write on a prescription pad. So I feel like that is making an important impact on the academy. Second, the impact on osteopathic medicine. Number one, first and foremost, a seat at the table, right? Like we just talked about the osteopathic voice on important issues. I think it was Shirley Chisholm who said that if they don't offer you a seat at the table, bring a folding chair, something along those lines. Well, AOF and ACOM and the AOA have kind of brought that folding chair, and I am grateful to be the one currently sitting in it. Showing up matters. Showing up matters on this national stage, and honestly, this is an international stage. An example of this, I sit on a large action collaborative, again, surrounding opioids. Not everything I do is around opioids, but it's an interest of mine. So I sit on this large action collaborative, and one of the issues was talking about recent policy changes, namely the MAT Act and the MATE Act from last year. The MATE Act will institute mandatory 8-hour requirements for recognizing and treating substance use disorders prior to renewing your DEA registration. so part of as a part of that, they're asking, I'm on a subcommittee surrounding medical education, and medical education community in the broadly writ large is kind of asking, what does this look like? What are these training? What does this 8 hours consist of? What should this look like? And so I get to participate in that conversation, and I get to say, here's what we should be thinking about from an osteopathic perspective. Here's what maybe we could be doing in terms of, ACOM and that sort of thing, kind of saying, hey, as a collaborative of osteopathic educators, here's our thoughts on this. And it's really great because I think, obviously we represent a large and growing proportion of physicians in the United States. So I think it's critical that we be at that table. So I think my participation in this is also helping there. And then I'm able to then turn around and talk to people in the osteopathic community and say, hey, this is what's coming. What are your thoughts on this? Thirdly, and the one with which I'm perhaps most acutely aware, right, is the impact on me, my professional trajectory and that sort of thing. Really, really hard to quantify. This has been just a phenomenal experience. I'm only about maybe a quarter of the way through. It's been fantastic. So opportunities to meet national figures, Tony Fauci, Francis Collins, Atul Gawande, Don Berwick, many, many others. Here's a couple of pictures of a couple of those people, right? Francis Collins, most recent, or up until recently, the longstanding director of NIH, and Tony Fauci, I think we're all familiar with at this point. Fantastic conversations with them. In some cases, ongoing connections and ongoing projects, right? So I had a lengthy conversation with Dr. Collins that then led to Zoom calls with some of his staff at the White House. He's at the White House now. So ongoing collaborations with the Executive Office of the President, National Security Council. I was standing in a room one time, just being in the room matters. I was standing in the room one time, waiting, I think, to talk with Don Berwick, and a gentleman standing next to me, and I get to talking, and he asks about my background, and I ask a little bit about his. And then after a little while, he hands me a card that says Executive Office of the President, and, shoot me an email. We need to talk about X and Y and Z. So again, just being in the room often opens all of these doors. So it has had an immeasurable impact on me, and I will extend this to my community. So I recently left academia, and I'm now in rural South Georgia. And by having these connections and being in these rooms and being a part of these studies, I'm able to bring a lot of this back to my new home, right? And grow kind of what we're capable of in this very, very small, I hesitate to use the term health system, but we'll call it that, a very small health system in rural America. And I'm able to kind of point to some things and say, this happened as a result of this fellowship and kind of the training and network that I have established here. So most importantly and lastly, thank you to the AOF. This has been, like I said, just already a phenomenal experience. I'm looking forward to the rest of it.